There were a ton of paranormal experiences in my childhood home in Long Island, New York. They ranged from when I was a little kid all the way up to 15 or 16 years old. We've long since moved out of that place, but I still get the prickly fear feeling thinking about some of them. I'll share more as time goes on, but this particular event happened when I was 13 or 14. Some context. My bed was on the wall opposite the door, and if I turned to my right, there was a wall with a closet. To my left, there was a wall with a window, and my bed sat most closely to that adjoining corner. One night, I was sleeping and had a strange dream. In the dream, I was walking through a huge group of faceless people. I sensed that they were everyone I've ever known, although they didn't have any recognizable features. They weren't facing me. They were talking to each other at the volume you might hear a group talking in a museum or art gallery, hushed and soft, but not low enough to be a whisper. As I walked through the crowd, I could hear threads of different conversations, but couldn't actually hear the words or sentences. It was as if they were making white noise from human voices. I listened to their conversations more intently, determined to catch something they were saying. Suddenly, they became aware that I was listening to them. Hushing rippled throughout the crowd and they quieted themselves so I wouldn't overhear them. They started to turn and look at me. They urged one another to shh. All that I could hear was shh, coming from everywhere. I felt increasingly uneasy as they were aware that I was aware of them. They didn't harm me in any way, but I felt a growing sense of threat so uncomfortable it woke me up. I woke up in the dark facing the far corner of my room. Then, from directly above my head, shh, I was filled with cold dread and panic. It was right above me. I stayed frozen in that spot for what felt like hours, until I found the strength to use my voice and call for my parents. I have a friend who told me to share my experience here. So I want to preface this by saying I'm very skeptical about the whole paranormal thing. However, I do believe that we don't know every little thing this world has to offer. But ultimately, everything should have a rational explanation. Please help me find that rational explanation, or tell me what you think I'm dealing with and how to make it stop. Throughout my life, I've had 4 experiences that one could possibly consider to be paranormal. The first time was when I started a new job as an admin with a mental health office, and part of my job was to travel to our residential facility once a week to work there for the day. Allegedly, the facility is extremely haunted. It once was a nunnery, and now is a short-stay residential facility for those mentally well enough to not be in hospital, but not well enough to be at home. Anyways, after working there for a month or so, I had heard all sorts of myths and stories about the experiences people have had, many of them similar. I was staying with my mum for 1 week, as my dad and brother were out of town. I decided to take her out for dinner where I live, about an hour away. And after, we did a slow drive-by tour of where I worked. As we approached the facility, I told her the stories and we both cracked jokes about it the whole way home. Upon arriving home, a semi-isolated house on an acreage, I was the first one in the door. The door enters by the kitchen, and as I walked in, the electric kettle boiled and clicked off, which is bizarre because nobody else was home. Nothing was around that could have fallen and turned it on, and it couldn't have been boiling the whole time because we were gone for about 4 hours. It would have boiled dry. The second time wasn't that many months after that, while I was at the facility. There was an outing that day, so it was just myself and the supervisor there in the office. We were talking and all of a sudden the radio turned on in the next room. It wasn't loud, so it took us both a minute to realize it had turned on. We both looked at each other, and then it stopped. My colleague yelled out, "Hello? Anyone home?" But there was no response. I went to the other room to look, and the radio was sitting on the chair, with the cord wrapped around it, not plugged in, powerless, and it couldn't have been a cell phone. But all of those were about 7 or 8 years ago. Fast forward to maybe about 6 months to a year ago or so. In any case, I couldn't fall asleep, so I'm in my dark bedroom, playing on my cell phone. Then suddenly the feeling got super intense, and at the same time I accidentally clicked my camera app, and it picked up a weird red orb thing at the end of my bed, only visible on the camera, not with just my eyes. I tried taking pictures of it, but it just showed blackness. The orb kinda hovered in the same spot, but definitely wasn't still. I figured it's probably just a weird camera thing my phone was doing, but also had never heard of a red light orb, so I texted my friend about it, who is into all that. She asked some questions and determined that it was not there to harm me, but I should acknowledge it and ask it to leave, and to be careful. But no further explanation about whatever the hell that means. But I do as she says, and life goes on without the red orb. I've tried numerous times to replicate the situation, but was not able to recreate the effect with my camera phone. Saturday night, April 17th, 2021. So Saturday night I'm out cold sleeping. Something stirs me, and all of a sudden I'm startled awake. It felt like there was something in my bed with me, who had just rolled over at the same second I had a slight whisper of consciousness. It felt so real I literally had to turn the lights on and check my bedroom and the house. Obviously nobody was there. It's the middle of the night and the adrenaline surge has me wide awake. When I stepped back into my room, that feeling I had months ago was back. I obviously can't sleep, so I do what everyone does and play on my phone again. A friend had sent me a Snapchat, and I went to go and reply, switching to camera mode, and the orb was back. It felt like the wind was knocked out of my chest, and then, just like that, the orb was gone and the room calm. It was terrifying but exhausting. I somehow managed to fall back asleep, a deep sleep filled with nightmares. I don't remember the details or even the context of it all, but I remember there was a struggle. I was on the floor fighting and kicking to crawl away, and someone or something was grabbing at my legs, my calves trying to pull and drag me away. To what? I don't know. I'm currently looking for answers. A few years back, about 4 or 6 years ago, I believe I witnessed a ghost or spirit of some sort. Basically, I have a bathroom in my room, and the end of my bed faces the bathroom door. One night, I'm unsure of what time it exactly was, I woke up and saw a hand coming out of my bathroom door. The hand was completely black, and the hand was holding onto the front of the door. I'm searching for answers on what this could have been. My mum told me that we're near an old Native American burial ground that's about 5 minutes away from me. I cannot confirm that it's actually true. For as long as I can remember, I've always seen a man in a top hat, wearing a trench coat and a suit underneath. The man I've seen has a briefcase too. His face is blurred out, but I can still see the outlines of features on his face. He always asks me 3 to 4 questions, as if he's checking in on me. I've always felt protected by him and never scared, but also not as if he was super friendly, just there to make sure I was okay. One time I was asleep with my boyfriend at the time, and I heard the man ask me, "Want some water?" And my ex woke up and asked me what I had said, when I hadn't said anything. It was just the man asking me a question. That was the first sort of confirmation I felt like I had, because he heard the voice too. He's always asking me, "Are you okay? How are you?" Really short questions, checking in on me in a way. Today I saw a TikTok explaining the man in the top hat, and after years of research, I finally stumbled upon a community of people that related to me. I then told a close childhood friend what I've been experiencing, and she referred me to this Reddit post, and I'm in awe with confirmation about this man. I'm turning 23, and I still see and hear him. I don't physically see him standing in the room, but I see him in my mind. If I close my eyes, or even when I feel as though he is there, or hear him ask me a question. Does anyone else relate to the questions being asked, feeling as though this hat man is checking in on you here and there? When I was younger, I used to see shadows out of the corner of my eyes. As soon as I'd look towards them, they'd disappear, like dissolve or shoot off. They were sometimes human-shaped, other times just formless. I remember specifically I was home alone, probably about 15, and I saw a black cat and it was running towards me. We didn't have a cat. I didn't understand how it got in the house. I put my arms out to pet it, and it disappeared right in front of me. I don't know what I believe when it comes to the paranormal, but my parents' house growing up had something going on. One time a picture completely flipped off our living room wall, and we all had experiences of feeling watched. But once I moved out, I stopped seeing these shadows. But recently I've started seeing them again in my office, in my apartment, and most recently tonight when I was driving. I always see them in a confined space, except this time when I was driving around 11 p.m. It was dark, but there were street lights. I saw what looked to be something sprinting across the street, so fast that I was going to hit it. It looked weird, almost like a human on all fours, but running like a wild dog. I braked extremely hard and scared the crap out of my friend who saw nothing. Then as immediately as I saw it, it completely vanished. Has anyone experienced this? It's freaking me out. The ones at my parents' house gave me creepy feelings, but these new ones don't. They just startle me. I don't hear anything either. Any ideas? The first time I saw the Hat Man, I was 8. It was just after my grandpa died, and I was very sad because it was the first family death I ever experienced, and I didn't know how to cope. I was in the bathroom at my dad's house, and I just took a shower. The bathroom is directly across from my dad's bedroom, and his bedroom door was open. When I opened the bathroom door, Hat Man was standing in the doorway to my dad's room. He was really tall, like as tall as the doorway, and had no distinguishable features. It just looked like the outline of a really tall man with a hat on, and completely black. Like just a void of light. It looked, no eyes or face, at me for like 1 second, and then turned and floated behind the wall. I ran after it, but when I got in there, it was gone. I literally was so confused and not scared at all. For some reason, when I saw it, this overwhelming sense of peace came over me, and it practically took away the sadness I felt for my grandpa. I have no idea how to explain this. For years after this, I questioned whether I even saw anything, because it happened so quickly, and I eventually chalked it up to my brain imagining it. Then when I was about 14, me and my friend were hanging out at my house, and she all of a sudden looked behind me and made a funny face. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she saw a shadow or something walk behind me for a split second. When I asked her what it looked like, she said it was tall and looked like it had a hat on. That's when I knew what I saw was real, because someone else had seen it too. The weirder thing was, she told me she got the same sense of peace when she saw it too. Mind you, up until this point, I had never told anyone anything about this, so she couldn't have known. I was so freaked out. Then about a year ago, I got the courage to do some research about what I saw and what my friend saw. And that's when I found out that tons of people have seen this too. I was in shock, and even more freaked out because everyone else's stories were way more scary than mine. Anyways, I'm 24 now and I haven't seen him since, but sometimes I can feel him, or I wake up in the middle of the night with extreme anxiety and the feeling of someone watching me. Although I could just be paranoid. Thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, consider subscribing. If you have a scary story you'd like me to read, reach out to me on Twitter or my Reddit, which is in the description below.